Hello everybody. Today what we're going to be going through is the bar chart. So we're going to be going through the first couple of, bar and column charts. We're going to be going through the first couple visuals that are available on the visual panes. We're going to be going through these first four up here: the stacked bar chart, stacked column chart, clustered bar chart, and clustered column chart. Going to go through these four visuals. Going to go through them a bit more in depth than any of our previous videos. Going to cover kind of all of the settings you can do, when to use them, how to use them, and then how to kind of use some of these other functions within the visual itself. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and just open a blank page. And then once we've got a blank page on here, let's go ahead and just start on the first visual over here. Throw on the stacked bar chart visual. And let's go ahead and throw on just a value here. Let's go with the bar chart, with the stacked bar chart, the way that the axes works is x's and y's are a bit flipped as opposed to kind of the way x's and y values are looked at normally, with kind of the x value being the independent variable and the y being the dependent variable. It just kind of flipped around a bit with the bar charts, right? Just something to be aware. We've got the y-axis having our column values from our table, and the x-axis is having our measure values with the actual values on the x-axis for the bar charts. And then for the column charts, it's just the other way around. So you can see kind of that x-axis flips, just like that, right? All right, so let's get into what we can do. So what we do with this visual, once we put kind of a value and a category on our visual, let's go into what those options are within the Format Your Visual pane. So within these panes, within the stacked bar chart and stacked column chart, the options are going to be the exact same. The only difference is really just displaying it versus a horizontal view versus a vertical view, right? So this would be a vertical representation with clients top to bottom versus displaying the clients horizontally left to right. Right, so that's pretty much the only difference on these views. All of the settings will pretty much be the same. It's just visualizing data differently. Like this, the bar chart the column chart might be a lot better for time series data, right? Whereas the bar chart might be better for client series data, since you don't have like a time series where you want to reflect some growth over time, so you don't need to reflect it from left to right, from last month to the most previous month, right? Whereas you just want to show just clients, right? So kind of different values, different times you can use that column versus the bar. Column I almost always use for time series stuff, and then just categorical stuff I'll use the bar charts. Sorry, so getting into what these settings are for formatting the visual. So once we got some values on here, great, it looks good, but like what are our values, right? We don't know what these people are. We have to hover over them to see what each person's count of orders are, right? So one of those settings that we can change are, let's just add some data labels, right? So if we add some data labels, what we can do with that is now we've got the data actually popping out at the end of that visual bar. And let's just flip over to the other column real quick. Again, same kind of thing, right? Just flipping out to the extra bar. We've got our data labels. And then if you open up that data label settings, all we did is just turn that on, right? And then it'll just pop out with those default settings. What you can do now is you can customize specific series. So if you want to customize any of these specific data labels, you can do that, right? So right now, all we have is just a single series in here. So let's go ahead and change its position from auto to, let's just go inside base. So that's going to move it from the outside, to the outside of the line, to the inside base of the axis that it's on. All right, and then let's switch over to the column again. And it doesn't fit here, so you can see it's got a little arrow, it doesn't fit. Let's go ahead and reduce the column size, still doesn't fit. Let's go ahead and allow overflow. So if we allow the overflow, then we can kind of force show a value, right? So again, just different settings between those two that display the same kind of thing. Sorry, so let's get back to this one. So on our value settings, so what we've done is just change this position, right? So we can change the value, the detail label values position, just quickly and easily, right? So all of those different options we can whatever's best, whatever works the most with whatever you're displaying, a bunch of different options, right? And then if you go into that value section, again, you've just got some additional options. You can underline it, you can italicize it, you can do some coloring. So if you do want to do some conditional formatting on colors with this text value, you can do that, right? If you want to specifically color just this text value as a specific way, let's say it's a percentage value and you want to highlight stuff over 70% as green and stuff 50 to 70 is yellow and red is under 50, right? You can do that with a format measure on these visuals, right? So it's pretty powerful with what these visuals can do, even though they're just the default ones. So right now, what you can see our display unit is it's a point, it's a decimal, right? So we've got a decimal for our values. Let's say let's do something else. Let's do our total order value here. Let's put you on here. So let's say we've got some bigger values, right? Instead of just thousands, let's say we've got a couple of millions of values. And when we go down, then we got some thousands values as well, right? So let's move this back out to auto so that we can see some values on these guys, right? We don't want all of them going away. But then when we scroll down, we can see that we don't really see any value for our million, since our values right now, we have a display unit of auto. So it's automatically displaying the units in the millions and then showing 0 decimals. So the display unit of auto, I'll usually keep that where it is because it's just kind of nice to have that rounding happen. Then I'll usually, depending on how big the values get, if they're in the billions, I might go to 0.1 decimal, but with or 0.2 decimals, sorry, but with millions, I might just stick it to 1. So we can still see what these values are, right? So down here we get to the zeros, we can still see, okay, they're at 0.4 mil, right? So you can still see that they're ordering stuff and what those values are. It's not just a 0. And then overflow text, let's go ahead and turn that off. We turned that off before. And this background, again, if you just want to put a background behind that color, you can go ahead and do that. Changes transparency. Again, just to move the position of the value. Where'd it go? Inside base. There we go. All right, so that is the data labels option for a single value within the stacked bar chart and stacked column chart. So the other options within this value or within this visual is to give it a legend or to give it a category and stack the values to a certain value, right? So let's go ahead and toss on industry here. Let's go ahead and actually do order. Let's go order category. So when we drop on order category, what we've done now is from our fact table, so we've got a measure from our fact table, again, the total value of our fact table, and then what we've put on the legend item within this visual is the category for each of those orders on that fact table. So on our fact table, each of our values have a category, and then we're summing up each of those dollars on that order value. And then what we do with that legend value is we can include a breakout of how we want to look at that display for our values, right? So we can see each of those different values and what percentage kind of each of them have been contributing to. So like that bigger bar, bigger percentage of that overall pie. And so if we go back to our format option, now what we can see is we've got this total labels value that popped up. We didn't have that before, right? So if we go back, we don't have any totals labels. It's grayed out. But if we do include a legend, you can see that we've got our detail labels, but we don't know how much Pope Bailey actually brought in as a company, right? We just know that each of their values, their home appliances, they did 2.1, their hardware, they did 1.3, but what did they do as a full company? We don't see that. So let's say we want to know that. You can also turn on the total labels. And then let's say it's just too noisy, you can then turn off those data labels as well, right? So you've got a bunch of different options here with this stacked visual, same kind of thing. When we flip over to here, same kind of options when we're on the column chart. Detail labels again too small. So overload again. So there you go. Right, you can see all of the stuff kind of quickly break out, and you can show all of your values on your visual pretty quickly with just the click of a button, depending on what you're visualizing. All right, now let's go over to the cluster chart. So that's pretty much the stack charts, right? That's pretty much all you need to know with these visuals. Those are pretty much the customization options you guys have with these visuals, and it's pretty easy to get used to them and how to use them. All right. So now that we're good on kind of the stacked visuals stuff, let's move over to the clustered bar charts and column charts to see kind of what the difference is. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the legend for now and just have a single value here. And let's hop over to the clustered bar chart. So when we've only got a single value in here, we can see that nothing really changes. Well, actually, let me throw in another value here before we move on. So on our stacked column, again, we don't have any limit really on the number of values we can put in here. So we can put in any number of values, right? So let's say we've got, let's remove these two and do something more close to each other. Let's say average daily order and max total. Come on, there we go. All right, so let's say we have two values that are from two different tables, but there's some profit number or some dollar value that are associated with a client and related to a client. We want to know what those total values for those from those two different tables are with two different measures. What do they equal to, right? So that's kind of where these visuals come into play. You can just put in as many columns or as many measures that you've calculated on your data as you want, and then just calculate the total within that total visual. So you can just add those total labels, right? And it's very easy to kind of just see what those counts are between those different items that you're trying to sum up. It's very good for displaying, again, just those values across different tables maybe, but it's the same value, right? So like you're trying to sum up a total measure of revenue, but you, for whatever reason, have revenue on multiple tables, so you just want to take two measures, stack them onto this one visual, but they are two categorically different revenue streams, so they can just have two different little colors, right? And you can see exactly what their values are by turning on the data labels and then seeing what its total is without having to create a measure. So pretty nice and easy with just stacking these stacked ones, right? So that's the point of the stack. You can stack your measures up and equal the same visual. So it's stacked, right? Each client has a stacked value for each of the measures that you've included on the visual. So it's switching over to clustered. What clustered means is it's, instead of stacked, it's a new column or row for each value that you've put on your visual, right? So this gets a little cluttered when you have a bunch more visuals on there, right? So if you want to, or if you have too many visuals on there and you have too many columns, it can look a bit messy, right? So maybe you want to turn off specific data labels for some specific series, which you can do. You can turn off specific data labels on the specific series, right? So again, just going through and knowing all of those different options that you can do to make sure that those visuals are powerful and providing the insights that you need. But okay, so going into exactly what this clustered column does. So let's go back, simplify it a bit. Let's remove you guys, go back to total value on you. All right, so now let's throw on that. So again, same kind of options on this clustered, but the biggest difference, again, it's going to cluster instead of stack. So if we throw on that same order category into the legend now, instead of stacking, you see we've just broken everything out, right? So everything just gets broken out into its own value of columns as opposed to a stacked value. So again, just different value for what this, different visual value for what this visual can provide. For instance, it doesn't look as pretty with all of this data, right? This data might just be too cluttered in. We don't want to display it like this, but in this view, it looks great, right? It looks wonderful in this view. So it's just knowing what visual to put on the page for what situation. Same kind of thing when you hop it over to the column chart versus the row, or versus the bar. Same kind of look, right? Same kind of options, just a different feel to it. So those are pretty much the options to these first four visuals within Power BI. Very simple to work with whenever you've got a model and you've got some measures and you're ready to throw some visuals on the table. These bar chart and column charts are great for getting started. The columns are wonderful for some time series stuff, and then the bar charts are great for some category stuff and just some client high-level filtering for some visualizations. We will get into some other visuals with some other videos down the line, so stay tuned for those, and hopefully this helped. Let me know if you guys have any questions on how to use these four visuals, and I can go through another tutorial, get some other videos out there, and be sure to join the Discord, ask some questions so I can help solve your questions. And thanks for tuning in and watching the videos, and see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.